Hey guys, this is Ronmower, and I have been gamer tagged by Charlie from Strictly Sega. And for those of you who don't know what gamer tagged is, it's like being tagged, but this time instead of talking about 5 personal things or 5 facts about yourself, you talk about your 3 favorite consoles and your favorite game for each one. Now, I know right off the bat what my number 1 console and video game is, but it was hard to come up with number 3 and number 2. So it took some time, but I finally have come to a decision on what my number 3 and number 2 console is and my favorite game on each one. So here we go. My number 3 favorite console is the Sega Genesis, or as Charlie would say, the Sega or the Mega Drive for ya. And I remember when I first got the Sega Genesis, I got it in the mail as a Christmas present from my dad. He sent it from Georgia, and it was a good morning, and well, actually not so good morning, because I got the Sega Genesis in the mail, but he bought the version that did not come with a game. So I didn't have a game at first. Then I bought my first Genesis game, which is Green Dog for Green Dog for the Sega Genesis, and it was an okay game. When I was a kid, I enjoyed it, but it got old to me quickly, and I didn't like it no more, so I decided to give it away to somebody. Then after that, I got Sonic 1, etc., etc. Now, I had fun with the Genesis, of course, and a lot of great games on there. I mean, Sonic 1 and 2, as I already mentioned, Castlevania Bloodlines, Shinobi 3, Joe Montana Sports Talk Football, and etc., etc. But my number 1 favorite game, and this was hard to decide because I think it came down between Shinobi 3, Sonic 1 and 2, Castlevania Bloodlines, and this game, Streets of Rage 2, and that's the one I chose. Streets of Rage 2 is my favorite game on that console. This game pretty much has some of the greatest techno music you ever hear, some of the greatest video game music you will ever hear in your life, and the gameplay is awesome. Too bad Part 3 could not live up to Part 2. Part 1 was also great, but Part 2 just blew Part 1 out of the water. And me and my friends did a low-budget review of this game a long time ago. And if you have never played Streets of Rage 2 or never seen footage of it, or if you never heard of it, well, you've been missing out, and you need to check out the game. Number 2 would have to be the Nintendo 64. Now, I had a hard time deciding if it was going to be the SNES or 64, but I went ahead and chose the Nintendo 64. And again, a lot of great games on the Nintendo 64, such as Super Mario 64, Pilot Wings 64, Mario Kart 64, WCW NWO Revenge and World Tour, and F-Zero X, GoldenEye. But the number 1 game for me in that system, and it is my favorite of the series, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Better than Twilight Princess, better than A Link to the Past, and better than the original for the NES. A great adventure game. It's just, everything went well on it. I mean, it's just a well done Zelda game, and I remember buying it the very first day it came out, November 23rd, 1998, if I remember correctly, and I played it non-stop every day. It's just the Zelda game. I love A Link to the Past. Majora's Mask is okay. The only Zelda games I've truly ever cared about was Ocarina of Time, A Link to the Past, and then most recently Twilight Princess. That was a pretty good game too. But Ocarina of Time, in my opinion, is just better than all those games. Some people say A Link to the Past. Hey, that's fine. That's an arguable point. That is an awesome game in itself. But my personal favorite is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time for the classic Nintendo 64. Okay, now, my number 1 console. And some of you may already know this, but my number 1 console is, without a doubt, the Nintendo Entertainment System. I think I did a video response to Magus about this a long time ago. I think he was asking us, what is our favorite console? And I said, well, the NES. And no doubt right there, it didn't take me no time to think of that. The NES is my favorite console of all time. It's one of the first systems I got in my life. Actually, I think the very first system I had was the Atari 2600. Then after that, I got the Sega Master System. But None. No, those two cannot hold a candle to the classic NES. And so, I mean, wow, where do I begin? Classic games like Metroid, Donkey Kong, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, The Legend of Zelda, Contra, Super Contra. No, I'm just kidding. Ninja Gaiden. That's probably all I can think of. Oh yeah, of course, Castlevania 1 and 2. I never played 3 when I was a kid. I played 3 here recently, but not when I was a kid. But 1 and 2, especially Simon's Quest. Those games are awesome. And that's probably all I can think of off the top of my head. But my number one favorite of all time is none other than the Capcom classic Mega Man 2. The music in this game, first of all, the music. If it wasn't for the great music in this game, it probably would not be my favorite video game of all time. Now, I do agree that the gameplay is the most important aspect in a video game, but in my opinion, the music is the second most important. I mean, the music is what really helps set the tone or set the mood for the game. And with terrible music in a video game, even with great gameplay and great storyline, sorry music is gonna take the, like, if I were to give, when we review a video game and we give it a rating of 1 out of 10 or whatever, that really bad music would make a game really drop a few points, in my opinion. I mean, without great music in the video game wouldn't be as great as it would be with great music. And Mega Man 2 has some of the most awesome video game 8-bit music of all time. And of course, the gameplay is great. The graphics are pretty good for its time for the NES. For Mega Man 2 is pretty awesome. And I mean, almost everybody that I was friends with when I was a kid had played this game, had wanted to play this game. I would go over to people's houses and play this game. I would want to borrow it. I would try to rent it. I finally got my own years later. The game is just a classic, and it's what put the series on the map, in my opinion. Mega Man 1, I hate Mega Man 1. I really don't care about Mega Man 1 that much. Mega Man 2 is what really put the series on the map. Mega Man 2 is just a classic, and it really brings me back to my childhood. And Mega Man 2 is just my favorite video game of all time. The game came out in 1988, but I did not play it until like 1990, 1991, and that's when I got into it. And during the summer of '91, when I moved into these apartments that I'm living at now, and I was 10 years old, and I met a new friend who had Mega Man 2, and I started playing it some more. I played the game before, I believe, before I moved into these apartments, but that game really made my summer. And I mean, that game right there was, sometimes back then during the summer I would think, what was my favorite video game of the summer? Because at the time I was in public school, and college is different from public school, and the summer vacations are much more important when you're in public school than they are when you're in college. To me it is. And that's the time you want to get the heck away from school and not think about it and enjoy the summer. And me being a big video gamer, during the summer I played a lot of games, and I remember the game of the summer for me was Mega Man 2. And then I remember 1995 or 94, the game of the summer was Mega Man 5. Mega Man 3 is a great game also. Summer of 95, Donkey Kong Country was my game of the summer. It said, I think, in 97, I think it was Mario 64, I don't know. Anyway, Mega Man 2 was definitely my game of the summer for 1991. And it is my favorite video game of all time. No other game is going to take that spot in my life. It's my number one game of all time on my favorite console of all time, the NES. Alright, so there you go. There's my 3 favorite consoles and my favorite game for each one. Now it's time for me to tag somebody. And the 3 people I've chosen to tag are Gunstarhero21, FCEU 100, and Icon Buster 57. So, there you go. Thank you, Charlie, for tagging me. So that is it. I am out of here. Thank you for watching. I'm Ronmower. God bless. Take care.